Perhaps this scenario has happened to you before. You're using your phone or at the computer. It might be because you have some free time, whether it is between tasks during the day or late in the evening when you're getting ready for bed. Either way, one of your screens is the most convenient and accessible things available to you at the time. It starts with looking up something simple. You hear animal sounds in the distance, so you look up coyote noises online to compare, and find out very quickly that they're the same sounds you heard. Then, you want to make sure coyotes are normal in your area, so you end up on Wikipedia to confirm that they are. As you scroll through the article in search of the information you want, you begin to feel as though you are really learning things. Now that you have satisfied your initial query, you would think you'd have good reason to find something else to do. But instead, part of you feels like you're interrupting something valuable. If you're like me, you click on a hyperlink to something else you're curious about, and you find yourself 2 hours later in the same position, having learned a little bit about everything from howling to Aztec mythology to roadkill. During that time, you've ignored just about every possible distraction from your purposeless, yet completely enrapturing hunt for knowledge. You finally go to bed very late, with a sense of guilt. If only you could have captured that energy to get work done, or even finish a book you actually wanted to read. That powerful state of being is called flow by some information theorists and psychologists, a type of human information interaction, and it can and has been applied to the information technologies we use every day that seem designed to fascinate us with increasing reliability. Hyperlinks, infinite scroll, recommendation algorithms, and much more that is now part of our daily lives. Human information interaction refers to the different behaviors or practices that people have with regards to information that produce changes in both. The study of human information interaction may involve multiple fields, but in this video, I'll approach it from a background of information science. The human in human information interaction is easy enough to understand intuitively, but information is a complex term. In the context of online content, such as social media posts, short-form videos, and encyclopedic articles, we can best understand the term to refer to recordings of the world and objects of intellectual effort, a type of digital thing. Some of the oldest ways in which human information interaction is studied focus mostly on how humans manipulate and change information through processes like searching, creating, and sharing. But by collaborating with other fields, like psychology, it is also possible to understand how information changes us as well, not just by purely updating our states of knowledge, but also by affecting our emotions and states of being. The concept of flow and flow theory are ideas first developed by the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, beginning in the 1970s. He developed the idea while studying the behaviors of various people in their ordinary settings, and noticed trends in artists who had become so absorbed in the process of work that they would tune out the rest of the world, even to the point of neglecting basic needs like hunger and sleep. Csikszentmihalyi studied the phenomenon for his entire career, calling the state flow. Particularly, he was interested in the positive aspects of the behavior, as part of a larger project for creating more positive ways of studying psychology. In 1990, he published a book for general audiences called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, that summarized his research and brought the concept of flow states into popular use. Here are the conditions he used to define flow from his popular 2004 TED Talk.
And regardless of the culture, regardless of education or whatever, there are these 7 conditions that seem to be there when a person is in flow. There's this focus that once it becomes intense, leads to a sense of ecstasy, a sense of clarity. You know exactly what you want to do from one moment to the other. You get immediate feedback. You know that what you need to do is possible to do even though difficult. And sense of time disappears. You forget yourself. You feel part of something larger. And once those conditions are present, what you're doing becomes worth doing for its own sake.
He speaks very beautifully of the flow state, but although Csikszentmihalyi was interested in studying positive, optimistic aspects of human experience associated with passionate activities such as art and athletics, he himself acknowledged that flow is not an inherently good thing, or limited to such narrow practices. In his 1990 book, he writes, "When a person becomes so dependent on the ability to control an enjoyable activity that he cannot pay attention to anything else, then he loses the ultimate control, the freedom to determine the content of consciousness. Thus, enjoyable activities that produce flow have a potentially negative aspect. While they are capable of improving the quality of existence by creating order in the mind, they can become addictive, at which point the self becomes captive of a certain kind of order and is unwilling to cope with the ambiguities of life. Some researchers advocate that the conditions of a flow state map relatively cleanly with the somewhat clinical term of hyperfocus, a phenomenon which is surprisingly unstudied or even formally defined in literature. I found one confusing academic review from 2021 that advocates that flow states and hyperfocus are in fact the same phenomenon, having emerged with different names in different fields of psychology. After Csikszentmihalyi's 1990 book took off, others outside of a relatively small branch of psychology picked up on the concept of flow and began applying it wherever possible. There was a popular idea that by understanding flow, people could learn techniques and systems to improve their enjoyment and engagement in areas like work tasks, leisure pursuits, education, and athletics. By the late 2000s, the internet had begun to become much more sophisticated. Social media and improved services for the delivery of content were developed alongside design principles aimed at improving engagement and maintaining the interest of users. Flow theory is the basis of models for understanding hedonic motivation systems, or elements of goods and services that encourage consumers to prolong engagement through the manipulation of internal mindsets and emotions. At least as early as 2011, there was research to support that flow was central to the success of social media platforms like Facebook. It's disturbing to think that enjoyment and ease of obtaining a flow state might be more important to the success of an online information system than how useful it actually is. But it would explain many of the trends we've seen in the last 20 years. If flow really is the psychology of optimal experience, then it follows that in an economy where consumer attention is the primary currency, the most successful products and services will be those that can basically hypnotize people into hour-long states of hyperfocus. You might be tempted to think that flow theory indirectly led to the development of the systems that enable your worst bad habits. But it's highly likely that the tricks for bringing someone into flow would have been discovered by trial and error anyways at some point. Knowledge of flow and the techniques for producing it don't have to be a bad thing, however. Awareness of these states and the ability to articulate why and how they become problems can only help the search for solutions. Somewhere in the news deluge of 2020, the neologism doom scrolling went mainstream to describe the behavior of infinitely scrolling social media feeds in an inescapable hunt for information that only serves to worsen anxieties and satisfy morbid curiosity. No one claims to really like doing it, and yet there's something keeping us drawn in. The word doom scrolling is successful because it describes something that we previously had difficulty explaining to others. When we're online, we search for information, which thanks to bottomless feeds and recommendation algorithms, has no end. The technology improves. Soon, in all likelihood, generative AI will enable the delivery of a stream of content fine-tuned to your exact whims and tastes. Screens themselves are incredibly captivating. No one perceives the glowing rectangles in front of them as they really are, but rather as portals to a much larger space that seems to encompass our entire state of being in a way that is almost magical. Personally, I find flow to be one of the best feelings in the world, intrinsically, but there's an emptiness to it when it's not accompanied by extrinsic observations of utility or purpose.